What are some of the just basic outlines of his life that we can establish with some amount of confidence?
Seems pretty certain that he was born in the late 300s. Excuse me, late 200s, excuse me. Um, Maybe about 280, 270, 260, somewhere in there, in Patara, which is on the southern coast of what is now Turkey. Patara is mentioned in the book of Acts, along with Myra, as both places where Paul made port at different points and maybe have even established a church there. So there is, in fact, the ruins of an ancient church from that period in Patara. And we might imagine, Nicholas, attending church there with his parents. It seems pretty clear that his parents were Christian and raised him in that Christian faith, and that his parents died while he was still fairly young. We know of a plague that went through that area, around that time. Nicholas being left with some money, some amount of fortune from his parents, but also being left with this sense of faith and calling and a sense of mission and service to the Lord. And so he wanted to act on that. And that really leads into maybe the most well-known story about St. Nicholas that I'm sure your viewers have heard, and the one that really connects him with Christmas, the story of the three dowries, when Nicholas was still a young man, not yet a priest or a bishop or any type of Christian minister. He heard of someone there in Patara who had lost all of his wealth and was in a true situation of financial destitute, to the point of considering selling off his three daughters into some sort of slavery or prostitution. It's an act that I can't imagine any parent today would even consider, but we do have records from this period of parents doing just this, selling off their children. And so, try to, I'd love for your viewers to try to imagine how desperate would you have to be? How bad would things have to become where you would actually consider, parting with your children and being forced to give up your children to pay off a debt or something like that? It is a truly desperate situation. Nicholas decides to intervene, but he doesn't want recognition for it. He doesn't want any kind of accolades for it. And so in the dead of night, stops by this man's house and throws a bag of gold through the window. And then sort of watches to see what the man does with it. And as the story goes, at least this man uses the money as a dowry so that one of his daughters might be able to marry out of their condition. And then when Nicholas sees how that money's used, he returns a second time with a second lump of money that gets used as a dowry. And then a third time, by which point, the father is desperate to know who is this benefactor and, why are they doing this? And when the father hears the bag of gold hit the floor, he hops up, runs out, and catches Nicholas and, forces his identity. Who is this? Why have you done this? And Nicholas, of course, says, I've done it for the love of the Lord, and because, I saw someone in need. I don't want any recognition. Don't tell anybody that I've done this for you. But we have the story today, so clearly the father told somebody. And of course, you can see in there the outlines of the Santa Claus story: a nighttime visit with gifts in bags, and then in the retelling of this story, in the middle-aged retelling of this story, Nicholas comes by the house and the windows are locked, and so he has to drop the bag of gold down the chimney where it lands in one of the girls' stockings that's hanging there to dry. And so you can capture all kinds of Santa Claus allusions here. But it was a story that really just captivated people in lots of ways. And I think I don't know, we might sort of just guess at why people would be so fascinated with this story in particular. It's a fairly mundane story in one sense. Nicholas doesn't perform any miracles. He doesn't raise anybody from the dead, or he doesn't fight anybody. I mean, it's in some sense, this is a kind of thing that anybody could do, just helping out a neighbor in need anonymously. I think that might be the appeal right there, because it is something that anybody could do. It's a very relatable type of story. And it's a story that's different from a lot of the other saint stories that were floating around at that time, that involved martyrdom, that involved miracles. And here's Nicholas just doing something that's, completely ordinary and yet completely revolutionary, completely uh, godly, and something that Jesus would do. And so it just strikes all the right notes, right? So that's an early story of Saint Nicholas that, again, is one that is still with us, and still, I think, captivates our imagination in lots of ways.
This episode is sponsored by christianministryedu.org. Chances are, if you watch my videos, you love theology, and maybe you've even thought of pursuing a degree in it. But it can be difficult knowing where to start, which degrees to look at, which schools, and how you're going to fit it into your busy schedule. That's where christianministryedu.org comes in. It's a one-stop shop for degree and career guidance, and it is structured to help you find schools and career paths that match your spiritual mission. With program and career guides that span across Christian leadership and ministry positions, you'll be able to make an informed decision about your specific calling to serve. Learn more about how you can gain the tools to pursue your faith-based future today at christianministryedu.org.